Well, here's a light you may not have heard of before, the Hygger HG-978, reasonably new on the market, around a year old. This one is the 42 watt, the largest one in the whole range. I haven't even had a look at it yet. I'm saving that moment just for you. So let's open the box up and take our first look. Inside we have our lovely light. I've heard good things about Hygger. I'd want to pronounce it Hygger, but everybody seems to pronounce it Hygger, so that's what I'm going for. And in here we have this wonderful LED. You might notice immediately it's quite a bit wider than the other LEDs I reviewed. To me, this looks more like a standalone LED luminaire rather than just an LED light strip. There's not much else in the box. We've got this little container here. I imagine this is the power block. It is, and we can see here it is a 3-pinner, so good for the UK, but I imagine you'll get the appropriate power block to your region. And also attached inside we have our little controller. We'll look at this in closer detail a bit later. And finally, our user manual. First page gives you all of the product features, so if you're into that kind of thing, there we are. Knock yourself out. Here it is out of the bubble wrap, and what a sleek little beast it is. I really like the look of this. Very, very sleek. The metallic finish is quite nice actually, and it's about 4.5 inches across. I know that because I just measured it. So it's quite a wide LED light. It's aluminium as far as I'm aware. You can just, yeah, you can see the aluminium underneath there. So it's just coated with a black paint. And then we have our mounting brackets. So they're pretty standard. This wiry kind of mounting bracket here, very, very common on these cheaper LED lights, but work perfectly well and obviously expand out to allow you to put it over a larger aquarium. Now the ends are just simple plastic brackets with screws. If we flip it over, we can see what we're actually interested in, which is the LEDs. Now I like this already because if you've looked at my previous reviews from Nicrew lights, you'll notice something immediately about this light which is not on those, and that is the covering of the LEDs with this sort of rubbery texture, this sort of silicone-y feel. Obviously on top of that we've got plastic case, but that isn't actually there to do any waterproofing, it's just there to protect the LEDs. But underneath we've got rubberization, which allows this to be put into water, or at least survive being put into water, which we're going to be doing to this light a bit later on. This is IP68 rated, which means I should be able to dunk it in my aquarium, but we know how that's gone previously with other brands. So what's exciting about this light is the fact it has multiple different colours of LED. Importantly though, for most planted aquariums, we've got white at 6500K, we've got blue LEDs at 455, and we've got reds at 620, which means we're going to be hitting chlorophyll peaks with this, which allows plants to photosynthesize and grow, which is excellent. We've also got the addition of green. Now green normally doesn't go on planted spectra aquarium lights because it's kind of redundant. That's why green plants are green, because I don't use it. However, it does help with coloration of fish, and it does actually help with some plants with their accessory pigments, because some plants do use green. Actually, that's a nice addition and should help with certain plants, and also for myself, macroalgae, which like to use parts of the green spectrum. So a really interesting addition, that one. The LEDs are extremely high quality. These aren't cheap and nasty LEDs, these are bright and crisp. So I'm looking forward to trying these out on my aquarium. Let's have a look at some of the features on this controller then. One of them is a bit of a gimmick. I've never known anyone to actually seriously use this, and that allows you to change the colour of the LEDs. I mean, it's nice if you're having people round or whatever, you want to set the mood, but even on bigger brands like Fluval, AquaSky, people use it maybe once or twice and then they completely forget that the feature exists, and that allows you to change these LEDs to a different colour. It's nice, it's a bit of fun, but no one, as far as I know, ever uses it. One annoying thing about it though is, once you've selected it on the controller, as far as I'm aware, you have to cycle through all of the different colours before you get back to your main light colour. So if you press it by accident, it's going to be a little bit frustrating to get back onto your normal light. But there we go. Another thing you can do is increase and decrease the brightness. Pretty simple, you just press it and it goes down and down and down, and then obviously back up to your brightness where you started. The next thing, quite handily, we have a timer. So this is a basic one, so 6 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, and it basically just starts when you set the time. So if you set it at 12 o'clock in the daytime, it will go off at 12 o'clock at night time. Same sort of principle with the 6 and the 10 hours, and it has a ramp up and ramp down time as well. So here's the last feature for this. It's the 24/7 mode. It's a bit of a weird configuration this, but I guess it works. So essentially you have to set your timer at exactly the times it says on this controller. So ideally 8 o'clock, and then that will do a pre-programmed light schedule from 6 AM till 10:30, with the light being on I think from 8 until about 5 or 6 o'clock at proper brightness. But before and after that you'll have like mood lighting. So this is basically the 6 AM wake up call, and then at around 5 or 6 o'clock it will turn to blue and give your aquarium a blue nighttime hue and going off at around 10. So it's interesting. You can't actually set the time on the controller, so it's relying on you to press the button at the right time depending on your needs, but it works. You just have to make sure you're doing it at the right time, and also it's quite handy for people who just want to set it and then forget it, which is a lot of people. One good thing about this controller is, once you have set it though, it does have a memory function. So even if you do have a problem with power cuts, or you unplug it accidentally or whatever, it will keep its timer and you won't have to go through it all again, which is really nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test it over this 4-foot tank. So I'd normally test the light over my fluval shaker, but it's a 4-foot version and that tank's a 3-foot tank. So we're going to test it over this 4-foot macroalgae aquarium. Currently I have 4 54-watt T5 lights over it, so really quite bright. So now I'm going to stick the Hygger on it and we'll see the comparison. I think you'll agree actually, that is quite impressive, isn't it? Wow! I was expecting this to be quite a dim aquarium light. I don't know why. Previous history has told me with lights at this sort of price point, they're not going to be very bright and very good, but I am incredibly impressed. Now, bearing in mind, we are quite close to the surface of the aquarium, which I don't think is a problem for this light because we've got little legs, and also the light spread seems to be really quite decent. It's really bright. I'm very, very impressed. Now, obviously, I think you'd probably want 2. If it was me, I would have 2. I'd have one, you know, at the front and one at the back, but that's still only going to set you back around £140. The thing I'm most impressed about is the colour. So I was also expecting a little bit of washing out of maybe the Botrocladia and the Coloration, but they are showing their true colours. They're bright red, they're bright green, and the fish, although they're not the most colourful mollies in the world, they're showing a nice colour. So that's down to this mixture of LEDs. All these different colours of LEDs are allowing the fish to be seen in their true colours and allowing the macroalgae to be seen in its true colour. Really, really impressive. Alright, let's try it on a bigger tank then, because that's actually got me really excited. So this is a 4x2x2, really deep, and the light is mounted up there. At the moment, we've got my trusty Tri-Spec 2 on this, a 4-foot unit. Tri-Spec 2 is one of my favourite LED lights. Even though it's quite old, I think they're amazing. This is how the Tri-Spec 2 looks right now, and this is the Hygger light. So you can notice it is dimmer. The coloration is better though. It's not quite as yellow, but I would say it's definitely not as bright as a Tri-Spec 2. Obviously Tri-Spec 2s cost about £200, this costs 70. So I think if you had 2 of these, you'd probably match a Tri-Spec 2, but there we go. Not the best singularly over a large 4-foot tank, but then you'd probably buy a couple of these units anyway. However, coloration wise, it is really nice. We're still getting the greens, we're still getting the blues, and so on from the fish. So, a reasonable test. And definitely, if you had a tank this big, you wouldn't just be buying one of these. So as I mentioned earlier, this light is officially rated at IP68, which means I should be able to submerge it into water and have no issues whatsoever. As I mentioned, the plastic on the front of this isn't there to protect from water ingress. It's just to protect the LEDs. The waterproofing is actually below that and is on the LED itself. So we will get water ingress into the casing, but it's how the LEDs cope with it. So if basically none of them die in 10 minutes, like we've seen on other brands, then we know we're onto a winner here. So I'm going to dunk it into this big 4-foot tank that we've just seen, and we'll see what the results are. Bum, 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 bum. Now IP68 should be water resistant for a reasonable time. It's not just a simple dunk in the water and dunk out again. And we can see we've got no failures at all, which is amazing. So I'm going to take it out now. So there is water beneath the plastic, like I said, but that's not an issue. That's not what we're looking for. The LEDs themselves are coated in some sort of silicone or resin. The final test is a Lux test from the top of my shaker to the bottom. I do this on every single light that I review, so it's the same distance as I've previously done for the AquaSky and for the Nicrew lights I reviewed. You can see here the Lux is 1218. That's actually a lot lower than the AquaSky and the previous Nicrew lights that I reviewed, which is a bit of a surprise actually. So that Lux reading was at 25 inches down basically, and the last lights I reviewed, I think the AquaSky was around 1900 lux, so brighter than this, and the Nicrew C10 was at 2200 if I remember, so this is 1000 lux lower than I was expecting actually. I was expecting it to be closer to the Nicrew one because of how bright it looks. It's really weird. It looks brighter than the Nicrew light, it looks brighter than an AquaSky, but actually when you use a lux meter it's not. Very, very interesting. However, I would still say this is a very, very bright light and very competitively priced. I think this one's 70 odd quid for a 4-foot LED. We can see that all of the LEDs are still working. These aren't LEDs, by the way, they're not blown. All the LEDs are still functioning. So it's past the IP68 rating, which is a hallelujah moment because it's the first Amazon light that I've tested that's actually passed a waterproofing test. So well done, Hygger, you have done a really, really good job here with your waterproofing. Thoroughly impressed. By removing 2 simple screws, you can actually take off the end and remove the plastic screen. I've done that because I want to give it a dry. Now I've just submerged it in salt water and it's passed, but I don't want salt water inside of this light because salt is very nasty. And I've just noticed this connection here, which although it is sealed, I don't want corrosion on that. So I'm just going to give it a good dry, but that does give you an indication of just what the purpose of this plastic is. It is simply for protection of the LEDs, and you'll most likely get a bit of condensation on the inside of this if you have it in an enclosed aquarium, which you could do perfectly, but it won't actually affect the working of the LEDs themselves. I think this is an excellent light. I mean, I can't really fault it. It's beautifully thin as well, which is something else I love about this light. It's really thin, it's really light, it weighs barely anything, to be fair. So I think this is a really excellent light. It's ticked all the boxes. It's got full coloration, it will grow plants with those peaks for the red and blue LEDs and the 6500K. It just looks the business, doesn't it? And it's also only 72 something on Amazon, and that's pounds of course. So I'd probably pick up 2 of them for 140 quid, and then you'd really have a great looking aquarium. And also it'd still be cheaper than a lot of the top brand LEDs on the market. So let me know what you think about this. I'm really, again, thoroughly impressed. I've said it hundreds of times, but this is a really decent LED light. Once again, thanks for watching and happy fish keeping.